Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. Today, my guest is Sheree Beaumont. Hi, Sheree. How are you?
Hi, Rich. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well indeed, thank you. Very well indeed. Just done my morning session in the gym, so I'm feeling, my heart rate's still up and feeling like a box of birds. So, yes, absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic.
So, tell us a bit about you, Sheree. What do you currently do? What do you do day to day? And then we'll maybe kind of go backwards and find out the backstory as to how you got there.
Well, honestly, I feel like sometimes I'm a jack, what I say is a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm very holistic in my practice. So, I've got my personal training, I have my nutrition clients, I work as a life coach, I have a podcast. But it was all centered around true holistic health and really healing the body from the inside out. So, yeah, I make sure I support people in all areas and aspects of their life.
Brilliant. Yeah. And so have those things sort of come along over the years? Did it start with PT, or did it start with nutrition, or did it start with what's the journey been?
Yeah, I love that question. I was actually diagnosed as a celiac when I was 22 months old. So for those who are listening and aren't aware, that's an autoimmune condition.
Wow.
So I've been, yeah, since I was a little wee one, crawling
Mm.
around, walking around. And so I honestly think the nutrition part came first in one sense,
Right.
because I had to learn how to read labels. I had to learn how to understand what was in food, what to look out for. I was the kid at birthday parties that had
Yeah.
their own plate and wasn't allowed to eat off anyone else's. And so it really did spark this interest in food for me. However, I loved physical education at school, onto university to do my physical education to become PE teacher.
Mm.
And it was in that first lecture that I sat there and I was like, wow, the nutrition really hit home again. So I finished my degree, went on and did postgrad in nutrition, started up a personal training business in the process, didn't
Mm.
quite realize what I was doing as I was doing that. And so the two really started to integrate. I realized my love for nutrition was really, really important, and that's where my heart was. But I also loved the training, and so being able to merge the two, and over the time seeing the issues that would arise in both my personal training and nutrition clients was so much deeper than just the food that you eat or the amount that you move. And that's what led me down the path I am today.
Mm. 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 I think when I made contact with you, I sort of felt as though there were some similarities in our businesses and the way that we work with our clients, because those are the two big levers that we're taught are the solution to everything, aren't we?
Hmm.
And when you've done it for a little bit of time, you realize that, hang on a minute, we've pulled these levers and something's not right. It ain't quite doing what we think it should do.
Hmm.
And, there's a multitude of reasons, but it makes you curious, doesn't it? In terms of, well, what next? What do you
Hmm.
do? And so that's what led you down that more holistic path, in terms of you've got these two big levers, and yes, well qualified and experienced in using them, but there's more to it.
Yeah, I was seeing the frustration also with myself and with my clients. I was on hormonal birth control. My thighs were always the thing that had been something that was plaguing me. I could never shift the weight around my thighs. And
Yeah.
lots of women were complaining of the same issue. Like, I do work primarily with females,
Right.
and they're just like, I can exercise till I'm blue in the face. I can eat as little as, 1,200 calories a day,
Mm,
1,000 calories a day, and nothing is shifting.
mm,
And so the big issue there was, okay, what's driving this? What is actually going on? And that's what stemmed that root cause approach. Because I was seeing it, clients were seeing it, maybe it wasn't their thighs, maybe it was their belly, maybe it was their upper body, maybe, we store all different places based on our hormones and what's
mm,
going on
mm, mm.
internally.
Can you now read a body and
Yes.
go, okay, it's hips, it's thighs, it's under the chin, and go, I suspect this is what it is?
100%. I'll tell you what hormonal imbalance you have based off what I can see, and even more so if I do body fat, actual calipers. But I don't tend to do a whole lot of that anymore. But yeah, generally
Yeah.
speaking.
People aren't that. It's funny. It's a very small percentage of people that actually want the calipers, isn't it?
Yes.
I think that's a good thing, though. I think, that's probably both where the industry has progressed, unless you're
Mm,
bodybuilding, and
yes.
and where the general public has in terms of their education, but also their motivation for being fit and healthy. It used to
Mm.
be the aesthetics, and it slowly evolved into, both mental well-being, but physical
Mm.
well-being and health.
Yes. Yeah, that optimal health and longevity, which is the movement we're really seeing, the
Mm,
the development of the biohacking world really taking
mm,
off, the fact that people are going, actually, I want energy. It's all good and well looking good, but if I'm feeling like crap throughout the entirety of my day or I can't sleep well,
mm,
you can't run around with your kids. You can't
mm,
show up at work as a high achieving, high performing human. So it is a real challenge, and I'm actually really stoked that people are moving in that direction.
mm. And I think, our role as trainers has evolved with it because, we're the health professional that most people see the most frequently across their
Hmm.
week, right? Now, you don't go to the doctor 3 times a week. You wouldn't be able to for a start, but we're that port of call, right? And so we've had to evolve as practitioners so that we can serve the needs of our clients. And that seems to be a trend, that hormonal disruption is for, there's some real commonalities as to what happens, both men and women. But
Hmm.
obviously you're working with women. Do you see common trends? Do you see the root cause being similar from client to client?
Yeah, yeah, hugely. And I mean, I do work with males, but it's predominantly
Mm,
females. And the biggest thing I share with my clients is we have treated women like small men for the longest of time. And we are not honoring the fact that men have what we call our circadian rhythm, which
mm,
females do as well, which is your day-to-day cycle, right, of your
yeah,
hormones.
yeah.
Women have a term that's now been coined infradian rhythm, which is our month-to-month cycle. And so if you're
Mm,
a woman of menstruating years, you are not only dealing with your daily hormones, but you're dealing with your monthly hormones. This impacts how sensitive your body is to insulin. This impacts how you handle stress. This impacts your training, how much you can lift at the time. This impacts your recovery. And so to expect a female to show up to training even, or to show up to their day the same way day in, day out, is actually like a really, really terrible way to be approaching things.
mm,
So
mm,
that is one massive, massive catalyst in the journey to really look at. The other side of things is this gut health picture,
yeah,
which is huge. And the impact that stress has on that, the stresses from our environment, the foods, everything. So, again, when we look at things holistically, we are looking at hormones, we're looking at gut health, we're looking at nervous system regulation. There's so much we could dive into here, but those are typically what I see.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And from a female point of view,
Mm.
how deep do you dig in terms of, finding out, the facts about what it is that they're showing and those root causes? Do you get diagnostic testing done, or is it bloods? How do you sort of, work out where the important stuff is?
Yeah, great question. I actually do not recommend that clients get blood work done for their hormones. Everyone automatically goes sex hormones, estrogen,
Mm,
testosterone,
mm,
progesterone. And you cannot, because like I just said, you'd have to test them at very specific days, very specific times, multitude of times across the course of a month, which is
mm,
unrealistic for people. Most
mm,
people just want to show up and get a blood test done, one and done. Then you've got the dry, like the urine samples. Fantastic, gold standard of testing, cost a fortune. What
mm,
I find is we have shut down our ability to connect with our own bodies.
mm,
And so the first step, the first thing I get people to do, is particularly women, is track your cycle. Or if you don't actually have a cycle or you're on some sort of hormonal suppressant, look at the feedback your body's giving you. That is the best thing you can do, the real life feedback. Are you getting, symptomology? We can typically tell what is going on with your hormones based on if you're getting tender breasts, based off of the
yeah,
fact that you're getting irregular periods, or you're getting hot flashes, or you're struggling to sleep at night, or you're
mm,
holding weight around certain areas that we've talked about. So
mm,
starting there rather than going down the testing route, because the testing route is going to be very inaccurate. And then looking at the top tier hormones, right? Like I said, everyone focuses on the sex hormones. It's like a funnel. We need to look at your cortisol and your insulin. Your insulin you can test with the blood result. That is perfect to start with. Then looking at the thyroid, you can also test that through bloods. But testing your sex hormones is an absolute waste of time, in my opinion.
Interesting. Interesting. You're right, because it's only a measure of a particular point in time, isn't it? Right.
Hmm.
And as you say, that cycle is moving all the time. So it
Yeah.
really is only a snapshot. You would have to do the same date every month for a few months to get even a glimpse at what's going on.
And even different hormones. So, for example, you'd have to
Mm.
test estrogen on day 3 with the FSH. You'd have to test your progesterone at least day 21, but then some women don't ovulate till day 18 or 19, and then you have to
Yeah.
push that back. But women don't know if they ovulate. It's
Yeah.
just this giant, complicated process, which
Yeah.
is really unnecessary and causes a lot of
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah. So I like your approach. So do you generally recommend a journal of some kind, or is there some tech that's a better way of tracking those things to get more tuned in?
Well, first, like if they do have, a Fitbit, Apple Watch, something that tracks their temperature, amazing. Let's see if you're actually ovulating
Yeah.
first and foremost, because
Yeah.
that's going to tell you. I love my Aura Ring. That's what
Mm.
I utilize.
Mm.
Um, so that's one way to start. The other way is, like I said, blood tests for things like your insulin and your thyroid. So
Yeah.
those are things that you can test on a daily basis because that's
Mm.
impacted by more of your circadian rhythm versus your
Mm.
infradian rhythm. So
Mm.
starting there, then starting to track your symptoms. So most women, I'll get to download an app of some sort and start to log what they're doing in that. It tends to be a lot
Right.
easier. People take their phones to the bathroom and all sorts of things nowadays.
True.
There's a
True.
pen and paper. So they can start to notice what's actually going on and start to notice trends.
Yeah, we're more likely to have our phones with us at any moment, aren't we? Rather than
Yes.
going, now, where's that pen?
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. I like it. So, you've been through the autoimmune experience yourself at a very young age, and I suppose a steep learning curve, and obviously that would have been with parental support because you were so young. But
Yeah.
you also mentioned adrenal fatigue and your own gut challenges
Yeah.
and knee replacements as well. Is that right?
Knee surgeries.
Knee surgery, sorry.
Knee surgeries,
Right.
yeah.
And are
Thankfully, not a
those,
replacement.
no, well, there's only a certain amount of life they have, isn't there?
Yeah,
Um, are those things all linked in terms of
they
the
are.
health, the fatigue, the gut, the knees?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier the hormonal birth control.
Mm,
I'm always an advocate for getting to the root cause. And so, I went on hormonal birth control, like the pill, when I was about 13 for my skin.
right.
That I think was a massive catalyst in disrupting and destroying my microbiome. Research now
Ah,
supports how much that affects your microbiome health. When your microbiome's not healthy, your energy levels are depleted.
mm,
Also, if you think about the fact that birth control will shut down your body's ability to produce its own hormones. It's now
mm,
shunting everything to that cortisol pathway in the
yeah,
brain, that adrenal pathway in the brain. So you
yeah.
become more adrenally fatigued. Then couple that onto the fact that you're challenging your body with extra stresses, like I was training an awful lot back then, and my body didn't have the ability to recover properly. Again, don't have the nutrients that I needed to. I was
Mm,
focused on trying to lose weight. I
mm,
developed an eating disorder. All of this came all at kind of a peak point in my early 20s, I'd say, while
yeah.
I was at university and starting the business.
Mm,
And yeah, it turned into needing a knee surgery. Then I needed another knee surgery like 9 months later. The surgeons wanted to snap my femur bone in half, take a wedge out of it, and realign my knee, which would have meant 6 months off work, which I just, again, started my business. And I was like,
mm.
there's no way that's happening. And I actually sat down with a mentor of mine in the personal training world at the time. And he's like, no, let's just fix your biomechanics. And years later, here I am, not having needed to have that surgery.
Brilliant. So what was going on there? Was there a leg length difference?
No, they said because I had a valgus knee alignment, so the
Right.
knocked knees,
Yep.
that it was what do they call it, like a hardware issue, not a software issue, and they
Yep.
just thought they should straighten it that way. And honestly, just turning my glutes on, getting my glutes
Mm,
engaged,
mm,
refiring up my hamstrings,
yep.
getting my postural and gait alignment, I'm
Mm,
totally fine and I won't need
mm.
any surgeries.
Yeah, yeah. It's just knowing what the challenge is and working out a way around to compensate for it.
100%.
Surgeons, eh? They love to get the
They
scalpel
love
out, don't they?
operating. Yeah.
Jeez. Good job you're in that environment where you had that advice close to hand and you could actually sort of find an alternative.
Yeah, so grateful. Very grateful. But yeah, it's
Ooh.
all interlinked. It's amazing how one kind of spirals into the other.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So what was going on with the gut? Sounds like there was a lack of absorption. So you were obviously eating well because you were focusing on your diet, but it wasn't being absorbed. You didn't have the nutrients to recover, you were saying?
Yeah, so it's more of the leaky gut picture that can develop
Leaky.
with your
Yeah.
microbiome.
Yeah.
So when you're having any kind of medication or, especially like I said, the hormonal birth control pills have been linked to it. Stress. I was under copious amounts of stress. You're starting a business, you're studying at uni full
Yeah.
time. There's a lot going on.
Mm.
And so that does then affect the absorption, but then it develops food intolerances. It can make you feel bloated. It left my microbiome in a state where I wasn't actually supporting the good bugs in there, which
Mm.
allowed for a place for the bad bugs to take over and flourish. So then you're dealing with your small intestinal bacterial or fungal overgrowth. I had a
Yeah.
parasite at one point. And Hippocrates said 2,500 years ago, all disease begins in the gut, and then it starts to have that mental health effect and the eating disorder.
Yes.
And, so it just, when you don't have the environment to support you, not just externally, but internally, you're
Mm.
going to see a whole host of problems that
Mm.
develop.
Mm. Mm. Nasty. And I suspect that, you're very well equipped, having been through this challenging journey to help your clients who may have similar challenges. What was the pathway out for you? So how did you take the steps to get out of that position? So, I mean, obviously you've talked about the physical stuff with the knees, but what other steps did you take?
The one of the biggest steps was acknowledging that there was something deeper going on, and that, like it got to the point where I was like, I'm just not like, why am I not losing the weight? Why am I tired all the time? There has to be a different answer. And so I was like, the traditional route is not working for me. I need to find something else. And I went to a seminar that was all about holistic health, and I was studying nutrition at the time,
Mm.
and I'm sitting there going, my mind is being blown. We're not talking
Mm.
about this at university. We're not talking about gut health. We're not talking about hormones. I didn't know we're not getting the nutrients in the soil to get it in our foods. Like, all these light bulb moments just went off in my head.
Yeah.
And it was from there I started implementing, some of the protocols. The next day, I came off without any warning for my body, my poor body. I came off the pill. I was like, I'm done. I'm not
Right.
doing that. I'm not putting that in my body anymore, because I
Mm.
heard how damaging it was.
Mm.
And I started to focus less on the calories and less on how much exercise, like we're talking about at the beginning, the levers,
Mm. Mm.
and really focused on how can I nourish my body? And I think that's the biggest difference is, can we count colors? Can we count nutrients?
Yeah.
How much protein am I actually getting in versus am I eating little enough for my body to let go of things?
Yeah. 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 So gentle baby steps, but in a different direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and massive lifestyle changes. I think
Mm.
people don't address the elephant in the room. Like we said, it's not just the exercise, it's not just the food, but there were massive stresses in my life that needed to go. I did actually, for about 6 months, chop my training load down in about half. I was doing a lot more yoga, a lot more
Mm.
restorative work,
Mm.
walking, versus doing any kind of high intensity or like strenuous load on my body.
Yeah. 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 Managing that cortisol.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I was going to ask about the nutrition side of things. So you were at Massey to do your nutrition studies, right? And so my curiosity was, I wonder how that went, because what you know now to what you were learning at a fairly traditional
Mm.
um, course, there's AUT, there's Massey, there's a number of different institutions, but they sort of stick to what is probably considered a bit of an old school syllabus compared to what we are experiencing with people that talk about other things. You've got the vegans and you've got the vegetarians and you've got the carnivores,
Hmm.
you've got the ketos. There's a whole bunch of tribes out there.
Yeah.
And some of it's valid, some of it isn't necessarily. But what was your experience at Massey? And clearly, what that seminar that you went to made you question a lot of things. But at the time, did it seem like it was the right thing? And it probably was in some case, in parts.
I actually think I'm quite fortunate. Like I said, I did my degree in sports science and physical education first, but I
Mm.
chose, because after that first lecture, I chose a lot of nutrition papers. And AUT was where I was at for that.
Mm.
And I was very fortunate to have lecturers there at the time that were questioning the norm. They were questioning the food pyramid.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were going down keto when it was new. They
Mm.
wrote my professor and my head lecturer actually wrote the book What the Fat. And
Yep.
so I was
Yep.
learning from people like Grant Schofield and Karen Zinn and having
Yeah.
these conversations. So when I went to Massey to complete my nutritionist component,
Yep.
I was the kid that the student in the class putting up my hand, already questioning things, being
Right.
like, why are we telling athletes to have jam sandwiches? Like, what is the
Mm,
purpose in this?
mm,
How is that really nourishing their body?
mm,
How is this affecting their brain health? And I can still remember like people coming up to me after class going, "You're really brave. Like, where is all this coming from?" And so I think I've always been very curious to
mm.
look at other things, but I still, even with the AUT and then the Massey exposure, I was like, is something still not right?
Yep.
Because I'm still tired. I can't even fix myself in this situation.
Mm,
So there has to be another pathway. There has to be another answer. And I'm, like I said, root cause is always my focus. So I'm going to keep digging like a little investigator and figure out what it is. And that's what I do with my clients as well, which I
yeah.
think is what makes a point of
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah. You both go on that journey.
Yes.
What's the common thread? I mean, we've talked about some of the themes that sort of underlie what you see in your clients, but what are the bigger things out there that sort of happening on a macro level that you think, it's a societal issue that is driving some of these things? And you've touched on the stress and other components, which is a big one, but do you see other things out there that sort of are affecting people and making them unhealthy and not where they really want to be?
Yeah, I would say the hugest ones that I see would be the inflammatory foods because that's going
Right.
to drive the leaky gut. It's
Mm,
the fact that we're so oblivious as a general population to the damage that constantly cooking foods or eating foods that have been saturated in canola oil, vegetable oil, soybean oil, all of those are so highly inflammatory, and we don't
mm,
eat enough of the anti-inflammatory foods to counteract the negative effects
yeah.
that we are seeing, more people are worried about their skin health and that sort of thing, but we're not seeing the effect that it's damaging internally, not just with the leaky gut, but our whole physical being. And if
Mm,
we're walking
mm,
around inflamed, that is the root cause of so much of our modern chronic diseases. So if we don't start to make these shifts, things like gluten, massive inflammatory agent for people, you
mm,
know, quality of dairy that people eat or drink. There is so many foods, soy, all that sort of thing that's so highly processed. And we look at your average person now who eats well, the amount of people that I'm sure comment on your food and my food, and they go, "Oh, you're on like a diet or you're a healthy eater." And it's like, this should be the norm because this is whole real food. The stuff you're eating isn't actually food. It's chemicals and it's processed. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things.
yeah. Yeah.
And then, like you said, the stress factor, the term nervous system regulation is huge now.
Yeah.
And, for people who aren't aware, it's our body's ability to regulate our state, our internal state, whether we're living in fight or flight or rest and digest, or as I like to
Mm,
call it, rest, digest, reproduction, and
mm,
repair. Because you can't repair, your body's not going to be able to sleep well. You can't balance your hormones. You can't be in a reproductive state if you are living in this survival mode. And so it's now not just, oh, are you stressed? Like, oh, we're busy, this high achiever kind of mentality around
mm,
that.
mm,
It's how can we get you to live in a state where your body feels safe all of the time and build up your tolerance to stress? Because we're not going to be able to take away the stresses of modern life. Unfortunately, we
no.
can't all go meditate on the top of a mountain. That would be amazing, but we can't. So,
Mm,
how can we put things into our lives that are going to support us and keep us in that parasympathetic state? And how can we take out some things, maybe make some swaps so that we're not as prone to stress?
love it. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that comes up for me when I'm talking to people is I understand that I need to sleep better. I understand that I need to do these other things when I'm awake. But how do I get to the point where I've done all those things, but then I can set myself up for a good night's sleep? And I see that transition between work and sleep, that me time, as being people's most challenging part of the day because it's the
Mm-hmm.
least structured and it's the bit that probably should be as structured as the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Are we on the same page there?
100%. I'm like, one of the first questions I ask my clients is, what's your morning and evening routines? And they're like, sorry,
You
morning and
what?
evening routines. My alarm goes off, and when I go to bed, I just lie there and I try and shut off my mind. Yeah.
Well,
Maybe I watch the TV till I'm tired.
yeah, yeah. Great segue into my next question then. So those people that look at you blankly, what
Yeah.
do you recommend? So obviously it's got to work for them, but you can give them tips and hopefully they can, well, I think I could do that and I think I could do that. What would your recommendations be for that morning, evening routine?
So with the morning, I have a little framework called my three M's. So
Ah,
you should have some sort of movement, mindfulness, and a meal. So my biggest belief to help regulate your nervous system, to help regulate your hormones, to help balance your blood sugar levels, is you need to be eating within that first hour of waking. This is particularly important for females because otherwise it will throw off your hormones like completely throughout your entire menstrual cycle and that sort of
right.
thing. So, but it also helps the body feel safe. If you know that there's food coming into the world, into your body, then we're not in a famine. So our cortisol
Mm,
isn't going to go through that massive spike. So the
mm,
meal is an absolute must within that first hour. So all of these need to happen within your first hour. The second thing is the mindfulness. The way you start your day is how the rest of the day is ultimately going to go. This might
mm.
be 30 seconds of deep breathing. That's enough to be mindful. It may be a full meditation. It may be some gratitude. It can be something as little as just acknowledge, like, placing your hand on your heart, hand on your belly, and just acknowledging the fact that you've woken up that morning. But you are in what we call the theta state in that first hour of waking. So you're
Mm.
more creative, you're more in tune with yourself, you're actually in a completely different brainwave to the rest of your day. So it's prime time to
Yeah,
operate.
yeah, I like that.
And then the third part is the movement. Again, this doesn't mean you have to go and hit your workout in the morning. I am not a morning strength training person, not my jam.
Fair
I'll
enough.
fit it in if I have to. But getting up, taking a nice big deep like breath and a big stretch. I do my lymphatic drainage in the shower.
Mm,
So it's like
mm.
something as little as that. I'm just activating different parts of my body to get the circulation and the blood flowing. It might be a little sun salutation. It might be a stretch, might just pop into child's pose, but it's
Yeah.
getting that movement going.
Mm.
And, I say to people, if you can't find, this is within the first hour, this isn't saying you have to have an hour-long morning routine.
Sure. Yeah,
If you
yeah.
can't find 10 to 15 minutes to fit in all those three things, then we've got a much bigger problem at hand because you're not prioritizing yourself.
Yes. I like that. Using the shower time to do your lymphatic time. Perfect.
Exactly.
You've got to
Yeah.
shower anyway, and that contact with your body, if you hit the major
Hmm.
lymph
Lymph nodes
points
and lymphocytes. Yep.
down the body, that's two birds with one stone, isn't it?
And then add a cold shower and you're winning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. That's going to keep you less sick,
Yeah.
keep you at work. Some crazy percentage, like 30% improvement of
Yes.
absenteeism because of cold showers, I read.
Twice a day for 30 seconds. That's all it takes. So, and that's
Amazing.
not just doing the 30 seconds. It's like you can have a warm shower and finish with the
Yep.
cold.
Yep. 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 Too easy.
It
Okay.
is.
I've got your three M's in the morning. And what about the
Mhm.
evening?
In the evening, it really is about taking that time to wind down. I don't have a cool little acronym for the evening yet.
Okay. We need another acronym.
We do. But it's looking at coming off your phone for at least or your screen time for at least an hour, 1 hour before bed. Can we stop eating 2 to 3 hours before so it gives your digestive system a little bit of time to wind down? Can you dim the lights so
Yeah.
that you are increasing your melatonin production,
Mm,
and make the biggest thing I say to my clients is make your bedroom a place for sleeping and for
mm,
fun. But
mm,
like just having that as your environment. It can be challenging, and I don't have children, but like, don't, if you can, make it a place where your kids sleep. Don't have a TV in your room. Like, these are all things that are going to switch the brain off thinking it's a place of rest. Remove your laptop, remove the things that stimulate your brain to go, oh, this is work. So when you
mm,
walk in, you've got a physical cue, an environmental cue. Ah, this is rest time.
mm, mm. Yeah. Brilliant. I like it. I've scribbled some points down there and I'll work on an acronym and I'll let you know.
Thank you. I love that. I do need to work
Um,
on that framework.
those are great. I love them. And swerve to sideways swerve to
Mm-mm.
podcasting. So you're also a podcaster and you it's called Wild and Well. Is that
The
right?
Wild and Well
Wild and Well
Collective.
Collective.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one of the ways in which you share some of this knowledge to the world. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
bringing about awareness of, ways you can live really well, but also live wildly, because I think we have this
Mm,
concept that it has to be all or nothing and it has to be these extremes. And it's like I still go and enjoy myself. I still enjoy a glass of wine. I have late nights here and there. I love festivals. That's one of my biggest
mm.
things. And so you don't have to give up everything you're enjoying in life to actually live a well balanced and a healthy life either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. And I think what I'll do is I'll grab the link to that podcast and put that into my show notes so that people can quickly hit that and have a listen to some of your stuff as well. Because I think they'll have got a taste from today,
Yeah.
but they'll probably want to know more, and I'm sure there'll be some good conversations on there, which I'll do myself because I want to have a listen too. So
Fantastic.
yeah, we'll put that in there. So it's about that time that I start winding up and asking people for their tips, Sheree.
Yeah.
So I think you've dropped a number of fantastic along the way, but I suppose for fitness professionals, exercise professionals, well-being
hmm
people that this podcast is more directed at, what would be your top tips in terms of things that have worked well? You've been in business for a while, you've learned a lot along the way. What would your recommendations be?
Got a few. Let me see if I can remember them all. Um, the first one would be to regulate your state. So something as simple as your breath. 6 deep diaphragmatic breaths will switch you from from your sympathetic to your parasympathetic nervous system. So
Yeah.
simply doing that anytime you feel stressed or overwhelmed, start your day with it. Do it before your meals. It'll optimize your digestive
Mm,
health.
mm,
The
mm.
second the second tip would be focus on regulating your insulin. Like I said, that's one of your top tier hormones. So we're dealing with the cortisol, with the breathing. Then if we can focus on the insulin sensitivity and
Mm.
regulation, that comes down to kind of like little sub tips, I suppose, which is making
Yep.
sure you're eating enough protein to
Mm.
make sure your blood sugars aren't spiking and crashing throughout the whole day. And doing something as simple as going for a walk after one of your main meals each day, that enhances
Yeah.
that glucose uptake. It means you're not going to have as much of a blood sugar spike. You know, biggest reason I'm seeing people have hormonal issues or weight issues at the moment is their inability to balance their insulin, or they're verging on their insulin resistance. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
strength training for everybody is
Mm.
huge in that respect as well. So
Mm.
enough protein, getting some movement in after a meal, and then getting that strength training in is probably
Yeah.
the biggest ones for the insulin side of things.
Brilliant. Fantastic. I like it. Yeah, those are biggies, right? Nervous system and one of our key metabolic hormones.
Yeah. And then if I
Fantastic.
was to give one more, it
Mm.
would be to fast overnight. There's a lot of conversation around fasting and the benefits of fasting and everything, but a lot of the research supports a 12-hour fast, say from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m., is going to do just about the exact same benefits for your average person day to day. It gives a chance to reset your circadian rhythm. It gives you a chance to support digestion. It'll support your sleep. It literally transforms so many things, and we don't have to go without food.
No, absolutely. It's not too much of a challenge, really, is it?
No.
I mean, you could even say time restricted eating rather than fasting, couldn't you? Because if you stop eating dinner at 7, you have breakfast at 7:01,
Yep.
hey presto.
hmm
Yeah.
Simple and
Yeah.
effective.
Brilliant. And I know that goes a long way to helping the gut as well, because the
It
less
does.
the less traffic that's in on the motorway, it means the repairs can occur.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are brilliant. Any others before I put my pen down?
Or let me think. I
No
think that would
pressure.
be, yeah, I think that would be the biggest one. I think with all of it is, and we didn't really dive into this at all, but a huge part of the work we do is coming home to bring like to ourselves and that emotional intelligence, that self-awareness. And so I think the first step is to recognize what state you're in, recognize if you're doing some of these things, and then coming back to that deeper why and that place of self-love and
Mm,
self-care, and starting to listen to your body. If you can own and master that, your body is your biggest tool for your wisdom. And rather than just listening to what everyone else, every man and his dog has to say, trust what your body is telling you and your body's
mm,
feedback.
I like that. And I think that's something that we have lost touch with. The ghrelin and the leptin, just the two big hunger hormones, we just keep feeding. We don't wait to listen. And
Mhm.
that's just one aspect. There are so many more, and you're right. We don't tune in, and this kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning about don't spend lots of money on the testing. Let's just tune in to begin with and get some data that is easily captured from ourselves just by tuning in. And yes, they're capturing the data, but they're also learning to listen to their body, aren't they?
100%. And then they go, oh, well, we did this month, and suddenly my sleep is better. And I always say, be a scientist in your own body. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
we can look outward, and that's fine, and that's what the research is there for. But ultimately, you know your own body best, and it might take a while to get accustomed to that. It might take a while to reconnect to your body,
Mm,
but
mm.
you have an innate wisdom inside of you, and that gut feeling, even, you know, when you actually regulate and balance your gut health, you start to be more intuitive as well. So it
Yeah,
really does come
yeah,
back to it all working together, doesn't it?
totally. And that's where that expression comes from, right? I've got a gut feeling. And so let's listen to it.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's brilliant. Thank you, Sheree. I've got copious amounts of notes. So I will be
Amazing.
typing those up into the show notes. I can probably find the podcast and put the link in myself. But if there's any other bits of information you'd like me to drop into the show notes, please send them through. Where is the best place for people to find you if they're trying to have a conversation with you and ask you some questions about, something that may have come up for them today?
So I spend a lot of time over on Instagram, Sheree Hannah Wellness, or
Yep.
LinkedIn. Those are probably the two places that I hang out the most, kind of two extremes, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Both ends of the scale.
yeah, but yeah, I love connecting. So reach out if anything sparked a question or anything like that. I'm always happy to chat and point you in the right direction.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, Sheree Hannah Wellness. I'll go and find that and make sure that that goes into the show notes as well. Fantastic. Thank
Well,
you for
thank you
your
so much for
time,
having
Sheree.
me.
Great chat.
Beautiful.